What is up, world? Welcome to episode 3 of the Backseat Coaches podcast. I'm your host, Cam Carroll, along with Adrian Tillman, Jack Aylen, Nicholas Goodman, and Ethan Smith. And it is March. And you know what that means? March Madness and the NCAA tournament. We are super psyched to get this going this week with the first round games and to give y'all help to get your bracket right. All right, guys, let's get right into it. Let's look at these first round matchups, guys. Initial thoughts first on this bracket. Adrian, what do you think about this bracket? Anybody left out or anybody that moved up in a seed that you thought shouldn't be there?
Colorado State missing the tournament. It's a little bit tough for me because I know there are a lot of teams that are always right there on the line every year, but I felt like I wanted to see them in over Drake. I know that there are a lot of people out there who probably disagree with me, but that was the only thing. Outside of that, I think this is really kind of predictable bracket. You know, maybe a couple teams who are seed too high or seed too low, but yeah, it happens every year.
Jack, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, pretty much what he said. I also personally was a little bit surprised that Louisville didn't make it. I think they were the first team out. I was a little bit surprised they didn't make it because they did have some quality wins, but I mean, nothing too crazy. Definitely not.
Nick?
Yeah, basically the same thing. Like, I'm just a little surprised that Syracuse not playing in the first four, Oklahoma State being a 4 seed, just little things. But most of the teams that made it were teams I expected to make it. I mean, they were seeded pretty well.
Ethan, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think pretty much, there are always teams that should make it and teams that shouldn't make it. But, I mean, with the, how crazy college basketball's been this year, can't really say a lot of teams were deserving over one another. And also Gonzaga getting one of the easiest draws I've ever seen in an NCAA tournament. They do not make the Final Four. I will never pick Gonzaga to win another game in my life.
Wow, you don't believe in Luka Garza and company?
No.
I actually don't either.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Guys, one of the things I'm super psyched on in this first round is, or at least was a surprise to me, was seeing Michigan State in the play-in 11 game. I think this was a team that people thought were going to be in the draw of 64 right away, but wasn't the case. They have a play-in game against UCLA on Thursday. Guys, any teams or games that you think will be a big shocker or upset coming up in this first round? Adrian?
I've got to say big upsets. I don't necessarily see any huge off the board. Maybe Colorado Georgetown is a game to watch. And then right next to it, Florida State UNCG. I've got to go with the higher seed for both of those games. But I could see them both getting interesting. And I could really, especially with the way Georgetown's been hot, I could see them pulling through.
Jack?
Yeah, like he said, I actually have Georgetown over Colorado. I think the way they played the Big East tournament, they looked phenomenal. And I think that they definitely have the potential to carry that momentum into the tournament.
Nick?
I would say that I would probably pick UNC Greensboro to pick the win in their first round game. They were playing a team that I didn't think of highly of as Florida State. But since they're playing Florida State, I can't see how they pull that off. But the two games that I'm looking at, first of all, I'm looking at Virginia and Ohio. I'm not necessarily looking at that because I think bad about Virginia as a team. I'm just thinking they might lose because they're quarantining right now until Thursday, which means they can't practice at all as a team. They can only practice individually. So I'm a little concerned about how they're going to look when they finally clear it and then head out to play the game without practicing at all for just about a week, versus a team that didn't have to deal with any of that. And the other game I'm looking at is Winthrop and Villanova. One of the main upsets that typically happens every year is that a 12 almost always beats a 5. And Winthrop had a great year this year. They were 23-1. And you do not go 23-1 by accident. So I'm keeping my eye on that one. I think Winthrop might actually be able to beat Villanova.
Ethan, any thoughts?
Yeah, I got 2 upsets I'm watching. The first one in the West region between 5 seed Creighton and 12 seed UC Santa Barbara. Creighton got blown out their last game in the Big East tournament, and with all their controversy surrounding their head coach who got suspended, then got reinstated, it feels to me as they don't want to play anymore. So I'm taking UC Santa Barbara in that upset. And then if you want to go for a bigger upset, a 15-2 upset, I'm looking at Iona over Alabama, the SEC champions. Iona has been in the tournament the past couple of years, and they have Rick Pitino coaching. And I'm not sure about the tournament experience from Alabama. So I'm looking at that Iona over Alabama game.
Yeah, those are some really good points. I totally agree that I think this year more than ever, with the amount of games some teams have played, differences in COVID and how you've had to deal with it, I think coaches are going to be an enormous impact in this year's tournament. Two games that I'm looking at is a surpriser, actually, is a 3-14 in the South, and that's Arkansas-Colgate. This Colgate team can really shoot. They have 136 made threes and only 15 games played. So this is a team that's going to spread you out. Arkansas is the same way. The rumor has it is the defense down in Little Rock is not it. And they're going to really struggle against that Colgate offense coming up in this game. So, guys, let's go ahead and start at the top. At the West here, in the play-in game, the 16, Norfolk State versus some of ours home, Appalachian State.
Roll Nears.
Yeah, let's let the Mountaineers go first, guys. First off, have you guys watched your team play? I mean, obviously you go to the school, you should. But what's your thoughts on App State's team this year? And do you see them winning this 16 matchup game to go on to play Gonzaga? Nick, I'll start with you.
Well, I've seen them play. I haven't thoroughly tracked them till mainly the Sun Belt tournament. But I have kept up with how they've done throughout the year. And throughout the year, they were not really that good. They were only 7-8 within the Sun Belt. And some of that was due to the fact we had a couple of COVID clauses. One was for a full month, which that impacted our team, but we got hot. We won 4 games in 4 days in order to win the Sun Belt. And I think we can win the 16 game against Norfolk State, but obviously we are not in the same tier as Gonzaga.
Jack?
Yeah, like you said, I watch here and there throughout the season, but I watched a lot during the Sun Belt tournament, and they definitely have players that can get hot. Players like Justin Forrest and Michael Almananci are definitely capable of getting hot, and I definitely think that they have the potential to beat a Norfolk State, but it could be difficult because I think Norfolk State was more consistent throughout the year, and they definitely have been looking better, but I still think if we can get hot, I definitely think there's a chance.
Ethan, what you think about them Nears, baby?
Well, I think we're definitely going to beat Norfolk State. But I also want to say, I think we should be playing Michigan instead. Everybody knows App beat Michigan a couple years ago. And I think we should be playing Michigan and not in some stupid play-in game. Those are my thoughts. I think the NCAA tournament really missed out on a marquee game. So I think App would have had a chance to really upset Michigan, because I'm sure we'll get into it later, but Michigan's best player is out indefinitely. So we could have seen another 16 over a 1 seed or whatever.
Yeah, Joe Lunardi put it out today that he thinks Michigan will be the first number 1 seed out in this tournament. And I don't blame you when you lose a guy like Isaiah Livers that averages 12 and a half a game. That's a ginormous loss for your team. Guys, Gonzaga 26-0 entering the tournament. If I'm not mistaken, that is the first undefeated since Kentucky's into the tournament in 2015. We all know what happened to that Kentucky team in the Final Four against Wisconsin. Same script for Gonzaga or very different? Adrian, what do you think?
Before I get to that, I've just got to say, I know that there are some App State students in here, but I've got to say reality, Norfolk State's going to take that. App State's not a good shooting team. They're not. They won the Sun Belt while shooting under 32%. And, Norfolk's a good defensive team. And I can't see App State playing that game very well. But Gonzaga, the team that they're going to play, the team that the winner of the play-in game will play, I see them honestly right now, obviously they're a favorite to cut down the nets. I think they are my favorite to cut down the nets, despite, the undefeated teams don't win national championships, thing. I think that this is a team that can do it. They've got the talent. They've got, a 1-2 punch between having a senior that can put the ball in the hoop from outside, and then Jalen Suggs, who's turning this day after day, getting better, and as a freshman, just looking like absolute beast. It's hard to pick against them. I think they do it all.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is just a team that's been dominant the whole year, but we've seen weaknesses. Last week, we saw them against BYU, who I think is a very underrated team coming into this tournament. BYU is really solid at a 6 seed. But we saw their struggles down in the start of the second half, but obviously rolled on to a plus 20 in the second half. Jack, what's your thoughts on Gonzaga and on Jalen Suggs? He's obviously turned himself into a lottery pick, averaging 14 and a half a game.
Yeah, definitely. They've looked incredible. Obviously, they're 26-0. They played some good teams in the non-conference at the beginning of the season. They beat Iowa. And obviously, they don't really have any good teams in their conference, so they have not been played by a good team recently, but I still think you can go off of those closer games towards the beginning of the season, and I definitely think that they are a favorite to win it all, for sure.
I think BYU is in there.
Yeah. Say it again, Adrian.
I said I think BYU is in their conference, so there is a good team.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I was like,
yeah, they are,
because BYU is a 6-loss team with 3 losses to Gonzaga. So, side note, watch them.
Yeah, watch out for the Cougars of BYU, man. They are good. Ethan, I want to jump over to you real quick for a little question. Jalen Suggs, lottery pick. You're a GM for which NBA team? Which NBA team could use Jalen Suggs next year?
Well, I think a lot of teams would love to have Jalen Suggs on their team. Right now, it's kind of, hard to say because I feel like a lot of teams are in a position of, best player available. They'll just take whatever talent they can get. Is he a top 5 pick? Potentially, but I think he's on the don't give me that look, Adrian. But I think he's on the the bottom half of the top 5 because I'm not taking him ahead of Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, Kuminga, or Evan Mobley unless I needed a guard. So I think he's probably like number 5, 4 or 5 somewhere.
I'm not mad at it. I just think it's a positional thing. You have to need a point guard, right? Because 6'4" in today's league, you're not putting him anywhere else. He's not a combo.
Yeah, but Cade's a 6'7" point guard, so
Cade's a 6'7" combo guard.
Okay then.
It means a different thing these days.
Yeah, so Nick, I'm gonna jump to you this next question. Gonzaga, Andrew Nembhard, the transfer from Florida, and guys, we're seeing this transfer portal. It can either fire you up and create a great team, or it can backfire, like we've seen us Carolina fans in the past year. The transfer portal doesn't always work out like it seems, but Andrew Nembhard has been tremendous. Any thoughts on him and this Gonzaga team, Nick?
Can I be honest here? I've watched some of Gonzaga. I haven't seen him a whole lot. Well, that guy's the BYU guy, right? Actually, was he from Purdue?
Yeah, he transferred from Florida.
Oh, Florida. Yeah. Don't ask me about this. I don't actually know what you're talking about.
Okay, all good. Let's move on, guys. To the 8-9 matchup next. Oklahoma from the Big 12 and Missouri from the SEC. Kind of a flip of a coin. Both of these teams kind of have shown flashes of what they can become. Oklahoma has lost 5 of their last 8 in conference play, once ranked 7th in the country. Mizzou kind of in the same thing. They were in the 15-16 range early in the season, got down to as low as number 10 in the national rankings. Ethan, I'm going to come to you. What's your first thoughts on this game? And is it really just a coin flip here, or do you see this being a no-brainer?
I think it's definitely a coin flip. I think a lot of 8-9 games are usually coin flips. You can't really go wrong either way. I would take Missouri. They just have a better record against top 25 teams. So I would pick Missouri, but if you picked Oklahoma, I don't really see anything wrong with that.
Yeah. Adrian, who do you have in this game?
I have Oklahoma winning this game. And they've both obviously had rough stretches. Oklahoma ended their regular season on 4 straight losses. Missouri lost 6 of their last 9. It's hard to choose when you have 2 teams that are this cold. But once again, for me, it comes down to shooting here. If Oklahoma gets out to a lead, this game is over because Missouri can't play catch-up ball. And then they haven't been able to all season. And I think that Oklahoma has enough to, if they can get ahead, they can ride it out. If Missouri gets ahead, I can't say the same thing. So I've got to go Oklahoma. But once again, this one could really go either way.
Yeah, and I agree. One thing about Oklahoma is they're one of the better free throw shooting teams in the country. You get them down the stretch, extremely hard to knock this team out. Personally, in my opinion, in this game, it's tough to pick against seniors. And Austin Reeves has been phenomenal this year for Oklahoma. I have the Sooners winning by a little margin here. I have them by 8. Jack, any thoughts here on this game?
Yeah, I mean, like you guys all said, well, I think it's going to be a coin flip. It's really just going to come down to, I think, who shoots better. It's really going to be close. I'm not really sure who I have. I mean, I have Oklahoma in my bracket, but it's definitely going to be close.
Yeah, Nick.
Yeah, I picked Oklahoma, but yeah, all the 8-9 games are really just 50-50. But I just feel like Oklahoma is just a little bit better offensively, and that's why I picked them. Yeah,
big game there. Do you think any of these teams, guys, can do any damage to Gonzaga? I personally don't think they will do anything to Gonzaga. I have Gonzaga going extremely far in this tournament. Let's talk about the 5-12 here. This has been an extremely common upset pick for most people in their brackets. We have Creighton from the Big East and University of California, Santa Barbara. Initial thoughts here, guys. Ethan, I'll start with you. Who do you have in this?
Yeah, I'm as I mentioned earlier, I think UC Santa Barbara is going to pull off the upset just because of all the off-the-court drama Creighton's had and the fact that their last game in the Big East tournament, they got blown out. So I see UC Santa Barbara pulling the upset, and I also think they're a pretty good mid-major team, so I would take UC Santa Barbara in this one.
Nick, who do you have?
I have Creighton. I don't blame anybody for taking UC Santa Barbara, though, just because of what Creighton's program is dealing with. But I just kind of have a gut feeling that Creighton will out.
Yeah. Adrian?
And I know that Creighton is a popular pick to lose here just because of, all of the off-the-court stuff, in addition to an absolutely embarrassing showing in the last game we saw them in. But I can't pick against them here. I think that Creighton is a very good team, and I think that a recency bias is definitely affecting people a little more than it should. Obviously, you want to look at trends, but when we look at, single game performance, especially in the midst of all the things they were dealing with, I think that they have a fire to come out here and, prove to the country that what we saw the last time we saw them isn't the real Creighton. It is a great shooting team. It is a team that's full of upperclassmen, people who've spent all these years playing together. I think they have 5 people averaging double figures right now. I can't not pick them.
Yeah. Jack, any thoughts?
Yeah, again, just a culmination of what everybody has said. I definitely can't blame anybody for picking UC Santa Barbara, but I also have Creighton. Like Adrian said, they're a very good shooting team. They're filled with upperclassmen, which we've seen has been a recipe for success in March. So I have Creighton, but I can still see this going either way.
Absolutely. And these are 2 really good shooting teams. We know Creighton and a lot of teams in the Big East, for a matter of fact, are phenomenal shooting teams. I think this one will be close. I also have Creighton in a close one. The 4-13, and this is a popular upset pick as well. We've got the Virginia Cavaliers, the ACC regular season champions, and then had an obvious chance to win possibly the tournament. but were knocked out by COVID, and the eventual winner, Georgia Tech. Ohio as well, sitting at 16-7, was fifth in the MAC conference and routed number 2 seed Buffalo 84-69 in the conference champ to earn their bid. Any thoughts on this game, Adrian?
Based on the eye test, I watched Ohio a couple times this year, and I wasn't enthralled with them. They played well in their conference tournament, and UVA is coming out of, I believe, as Nick mentioned, a week of quarantine following their withdrawal from the ACC tournament. So this has the potential to get interesting, but one thing that doesn't change is defense. And Tony Bennett is a scary, amazing system coach. And his system is that you will not move the ball down the court faster than about 2 miles an hour. I don't think that that's going to change. And I think that Virginia is still, dangerous, not a threat to repeat this year. But I think that they're definitely should be the favorite to get out of the first round.
Yeah, I agree. I think this Virginia team is not vintage Virginia. And we saw this last year. This isn't vintage Virginia, but it's Virginia. And culture wins, system wins. And that defense is going to be a problem, I think, for Ohio in this game. Jack, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think a large part of this is going to come down to how well Virginia handles this whole COVID and quarantine situation. I think that if they're able to go through this and, persevere, and if they're able to work through it, I think they should be okay. I think they're an elite defensive team, of course, with the whole system that Tony Bennett runs. I think it's going to be super tough for Ohio to overcome that. But if they let this quarantine thing get to their heads, and if they really just aren't able to focus well, I definitely think this is one that Ohio could take.
Yeah. Ohio is a team that had several mid-season COVID pauses. They missed 5 games early in February as well. February just wasn't a good month for a lot of teams, I think, with COVID. Nick, any thoughts on? I mean, you're obviously big on Ohio here. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I feel like that week off is really going to matter. I know players are all going to be able to work out on their own, but who knows how many people are sick? Who knows how many people literally have to stay at their home, can't condition, and they're going to come back, and even if they're able to play, they might be out of shape. They might not necessarily even be in game shape, even if they can work out on their own. And yes, it'll still probably be a good defensive team because we're talking about Tony Bennett. His teams are going to be good defensively. But sloppiness on offense is still going to matter. And it doesn't matter how good you are at defense if your offense is turning the ball over. So I just have a feeling that practice still does matter. Which is why I'm picking Ohio, just because I don't know how Virginia can stay sharp with the circumstances that they have.
Yeah, Virginia, the 2019 national champions. What's your thoughts on maybe the ceiling for this Virginia team? We know how bad they can play. We saw the performance against Florida State in a highly anticipated game. But what is the ceiling for this Virginia team? How far can they really last in this tournament?
Before I answer that, I just want to mention about Ohio. They have a point guard named what's his name? It's Jason Preston or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jason Preston. Watch out for him because he'll be in the NBA. I think he has late first round draft potential. So just watch out for him to see kind of how he does against some higher up competition. And they only lost by 2 to Illinois, so they do have kind of a danger threat, but I still think Virginia will win the game. As far as, Virginia's ceiling, I think they could make it to the second weekend. Unfortunately, they're matched up on Gonzaga's side of the bracket, so I don't really see them going past the Sweet 16.
Yeah, Gonzaga routed them earlier in the year. It would be no surprise if they did it again. The 6-11 matchup, first we've got the play-in game, Wichita State versus Drake. Drake was defeated by Loyola Chicago 75-63 in the Missouri Valley semifinal. Pretty solid team here, Drake. They were ranked in the top 25 earlier in the year, but they've got Wichita State. And Wichita State, I believe they ended up winning the American regular season, or they were second behind Houston, I believe. What do you guys think about this play-in game? Nick, I'll come back to you.
Well, I think both teams, are pretty good. They made the tournament for a reason. I'll probably lean towards Wichita State just because I know the American isn't a cupcake conference, and they were second to Houston, who is a really good team. So, yeah.
Yeah, E, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'd probably go Wichita State too, just because I don't really know that much about Drake, but I would lean toward Wichita State to win their playing game. As far as we'll probably get into this later, but their matchup against USC, I don't see them pulling that one off.
Yeah, USC is a really talented team. The Pac-12 guys, I feel like, has been really undervalued this year. Obviously, the West Coast games get a lot less attention. Adrian, what's your thoughts just generally on the Pac-12? Oregon State was the tournament champion, and Oregon was the regular season champion. I'm curious what you think.
The Pac-12, I think that when the Power Five was created, I don't know what the meeting was where they decided this, but within 2 years, the Pac-12 became the disrespected conference of the five, for sure. Mm. It's a Big Four plus Pac-12 situation. And I think that they will be slept on until something happens that forces us not to sleep on them. With that being said, this Oregon team is very tough. They're a tenacious team who I could see, shocking some people. I've got them in my Sweet 16. I'm not a huge Iowa believer. I can see them making some moves. And before we move on from this really quickly, I did want to say Wichita State actually won the American Conference. They had a better conference record than Houston.
I thought so.
And I believe that they finished second in the conference tournament as well.
Yeah, they lost to Cincinnati in the semifinals. So they were technically
semifinals.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was like, and then also before we move on from this, shout out to Durham, North Carolina's own, Trey Murphy in Virginia, and then Ricky Council fourth in Wichita State. It's like we passed up a couple Durham boys during that conversation. But the Pac-12, once again, they're going to have to do something to prove to people that we should pay attention. Until then, they're going to not get the attention that the other Power 5 conferences do.
Yeah, I totally agree. And guys, it is impossible to leave out Evan Mobley this year. He's a 7-foot lanky point forward, I guess you could say, with some tools. And he is really a talented player. Jack, I don't know how much you've seen of Evan Mobley, but he's phenomenal. How much impact do you think he's going to play on USC going far in this tournament?
I think he's huge. I mean, he's a guy that can lock down the middle. He's a great shot blocker, a great rebounder, good interior scorer. I think he's maybe the biggest part of their potential success. He's averaging almost 17 points a game. I think he's great, and I think that if he plays well, then USC could potentially make some sort of a run.
Yeah, I know a lot of bracketologists have USC going very deep in their tournament runs, and there might not be a hotter team in the country right now than Kansas. I know they got put on COVID pause, but we obviously know they took down Baylor in late February, and then routed Oklahoma State as well. This is a really good Kansas team, guys. And Bill Self, they have their turmoil at the beginning of the year, like a lot of teams, but this team is really fanning out. A lot of people really have Kansas very high. Ethan, I'm going to start with you. What's your first thoughts on Kansas, and how far do you think they can go?
I think they have second weekend potential. maybe the Elite Eight. I do remember seeing that they were going to have a couple players out for at least this first weekend. So, if they survive this first weekend, I think they'll be fine. Personally, I have them losing to USC and later on as an upset. Just USC has a lot of talent from Evan Mobley and some other guys, and I think the talent would just kind of come through, but that's a different discussion. But as far as Kansas, I mean, they could make it to the Elite Eight, especially I'm not the biggest Iowa believer. Oregon, VCU, some other teams on their side, aren't they don't have that same kind of potential. So Kansas definitely has Elite Eight potential.
Yeah. David McCormick for them has been phenomenal. The center's been balling. He's probably been their best player throughout the year. Another guy to note, maybe the best defender in the country, Marcus Garrett. He's long, he's lanky, he's a phenomenal defender. I think coming into the tournament, guys, this is a big thing to point out is there's a lot of teams with a superstar. There's a lot of teams with guys who can score. There's a lot of teams with their go-to guy. Insert Marcus Garrett, and immediately that kind of trend stops. Adrian, I know your Grizzlies are locked down defenders. I'm curious what your thoughts is on Marcus Garrett and locking down some of these superstars. Oregon's got two of them, so they could maybe see them later on.
I'm always going to be a fan of any basketball team that, has that great defensive player. Honestly, Tony Allen, that's one of the reasons I became a Grizzlies fan in the first place. I think that he's not talked about enough as a crucial part of that Boston championship team before that. But Marcus Garrett, love the guy, love the play style. And I think that he's in the right situation to possibly, be part of a deep run. And you're right. This is a star-led tournament this year. Obviously, all eyes are on Cade Cunningham, as a potential number one pick. At this point, I think we can say probable number one pick, actually.
I agree.
Yeah. But I think that all eyes are on some of those names, on Cunningham, on a Jalen Suggs, who honestly may not be the best player on his team. Corey Kispert would probably take that role, but he's not going to be the center of attention. On an Evan Mobley, and even on some of the ones who haven't panned out the way that we expected. I think that people are going to be looking at, UNC looking for a strong tournament performance from Caleb Love. And I think that all of those teams that I just mentioned, they should have at least a healthy dose of fear if they get far enough to draw Kansas.
Yeah, I agree. Marcus Garrett, 1.6 steals a game. East Washington, not much to say here about them. They're the Big Sky champions. They defeated Montana State 65-55. They do have 5 10-plus point scorers. So can they do some damage? Unlikely upset, I'd say here. Guys, let's go ahead and turn to this Oregon VCU matchup. This is another interesting one, the 10 versus 7 here. Oregon features 2 16-plus point scorers, Chris Duarte and Eugene Omori, both 16-plus point scorers a game. Jack, what's your thoughts on this Oregon team? They've kind of been slept on out west.
Yeah, I do like this Oregon team. They're a good shooting team. They've been hot. They've won 11 out of their last 13 games. I think, they're great. They're really good at shooting the three ball. They're a good scoring team. But I also think when you look at VCU, they're a very good defensive team. So I think this should be a very good matchup. I have Oregon, but I think it should be a good game.
Yeah. Nick, I'll come to you. Obviously, VCU, they lost to St. Bonaventure 74-65 in the Atlantic League Championship. They were 0-2 versus the Bonnies this year. They're led by Nashawn Highland with 19.5 points per game. But once again, we're seeing this superstar duel here in the West region. Just curious what your thoughts is on this game.
I'm gonna pick Oregon just because they are the hot team right now. And yeah, basically, I don't really have much more to add that Jack hasn't already said.
I'll just come to you with this last question. Both teams feature 8-man rotations, 5 starters, 3 off the bench, of course. What impact do you think depth will have on this tournament?
I mean, it might have an impact. It's not like they're playing, back-to-back days. They get a day in between. So I don't really think depth's really going to have that much of a factor. You mentioned both teams kind of play 8 guys. I don't really think have depth. The only way I think depth will come into factor is, if you run into foul trouble, then maybe you could ask that question, but I don't really see how depth's really going to impact this.
Yeah, I know you and the Blue Devils know a lot about quality over quantity when it comes to that 2015 championship team. Not many scholarship players on the roster, but won a championship. Really quality team there. Let's move, guys, to the 2:15 and our last West game, first round. We have Iowa out of the Big Ten at 21-8. They finished 3rd in the Big Ten, but were handled by Illinois 82-71 in the semifinal. Guys, personally, I feel like Iowa is breaching that elite level, but they are just not there yet. This is an excellent shooting team. They feature Luka Garza, but when you're getting manhandled by Illinois, manhandled by Michigan earlier this year, just don't really see them going that far. Adrian, I'll start with you. I know you're big on this game.
As much as I want to, ding on Iowa here, I do have to give them credit. I know they've heard a lot of stuff from us, especially in the beginning of the episode, or we kind of went, oh yeah, I don't believe in Iowa this. I see this team, that team. And honestly, I'm going to stand by that, but this is a very good team. The problem is that to win an NCAA tournament, you have to be a great team. And Iowa has not shown me that they are a great team. When they're presented with the opportunity to be great, they don't take it. Luka Garza is obviously the favorite for player of the year at this point. He's an automatic interior scorer, but if you take him away, then this is just an okay team with good 3-point shooters. And I really believe that that's not going to cut it when we're talking about deep runs. We're talking about a bracket that has an undefeated Gonzaga, a scorching hot Oregon in the round of 32 waiting for them if they beat VCU. We're talking about a Kansas team that's hot. I think that they're just not the right team to be a 2 seed among teams that are all in the midst of very good runs.
Yeah, I agree. And we talk a lot about leadership. When it comes down to that final play, who on this Iowa team is going to take a shot? And everyone would say Luka Garza, but sometimes you have to go to that point guard. And the question is Jordan Bohannon that guy? Is Joe Wieskamp that guy? I think there's a lot of questions left with this Iowa team. They have a first-round matchup with Grand Canyon. I don't see that being much of a test. But second round, third round, we could see them getting to some very unfavorable matchups. Jack, do you have any thoughts on this Iowa team?
I agree and disagree with you. I think that they definitely have the lowest floor out of all these teams, but I also do think they potentially can have a very high ceiling. They have the capability of getting hot instantly. They have elite 3-point shooters. They have experience. I think they have the potential to go deep and play well. And like I said, get very hot, and they can beat anybody. But I don't know how likely that is. I think they could get bounced by Oregon in the round of 32, but I also think that they could potentially go to the Final Four if they get hot, which I don't think is likely. But again, they have the experience. They have all the pieces. I just don't know if they'll be able to put them together.
Yeah, Fran McCaffrey has a really good squad there. Nick, any other thoughts on this?
I'll just say I think that Iowa can be a bit of a boom or bust team. Kind of like Jack said, I could see them either losing in the second round or making the Final Four. but it's just going to depend on whether or not they can hit their threes or not. We all know that Garza's going to get his, but besides that, is there really anybody on the team that's a go-to guy? But yeah, I could see them being boom or bust.
Yeah, I agree. Guys, let's go ahead and take it down to the East region. The first matchup, we have number 1 seeded Michigan versus the play-in game between 16 seed Mount St. Mary's and Texas Southern. Guys, first off, any thoughts on this play-in game? Does anybody have anything they want to say?
Michigan obviously is dealing with an injury right now that could be very important, looking at Isaiah Livers, but I don't think it'll, have anything to change in this first round. We're looking at a set of playing teams that, are auto bids. You get this kind of thing every year. You put them in the tournament, but you put them in a spot where you're relatively confident that they're just going to get trounced. And honestly, Michigan's just they're too good for this. The only question starts coming in these later rounds where we look at their health and said, will injury affect them?
Yeah, and we saw Mo Wagner's brother, Franz. He's turned into a little bit of a pretty decent player for them, but I think he's going to have to step up big time. You talk about the load when it's taken off of Isaiah Livers, it has to be put on somebody else. Will Franz be that guy? Will it be Hunter Dickinson? I think he's the best player on the team without a doubt. I do see them getting past this first round matchup pretty easily. The second round, another coin toss between 8 seed LSU from the Southeastern Conference and St. Bonaventure. Nick, I'll start with you. Any thoughts on this game between LSU and St. Bonaventure?
Yeah, basically what you said, this is really a coin toss. Like, I could go either way picking either team, but I just went ahead and just picked LSU because again, that was mainly just a gut feeling.
Yeah, I've been forgetting about you. Any thoughts on this game?
Personally, I would take LSU. They started to really kind of turn it around at the end of the regular season into the SEC tournament. LSU might be the most talented team in the SEC. They have guys like Cam Thomas, who averaged like 23 a game as a freshman. They have Trendon Watford, Javonte Smart. They have a lot of talented pieces. Their main problem was their defense, but it seems like they corrected it towards the end of the season. And I think LSU actually has a chance to go pretty far in the tournament just based off the amount of talent they have, and also the fact that with Michigan's kind of status being in question, I think that's a potential upset.
Yeah, this is a very good St. Bonaventure team as well. They don't have very much of a bench, but what they do pack in that starting lineup has been phenomenal. Adrian, let's go to you. Any thoughts on this big 8-9 matchup?
I think that I've got to go against the crowd here and say I think that St. Bonaventure is the team that I expect to win here because, LSU has the star power to make a deep run. And I know that we brought up Cameron Thomas, who's been phenomenal offensively this year. But we're looking at a team that averages, giving up 75 a game. And it's hard to win while you do that. It's at the college level. And on the other side, we've got a team that's, efficient team on both sides of the ball. They don't waste it a lot. They score when they need to score. And they won the games they need to win. This is a team with 2 wins over VCU. Is a team that I liked early in the season as a team that could potentially make some noise. And I will stick by that. I think that they get out of the first round, and I think they give Michigan a fight.
Jack, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I like this LSU team a lot. I think they definitely can go far. They do have problems with their defense. They are allowing 75 points a game, like Adrian said, but they're scoring 82 points a game. They have all the star power. The Cam Thomas is averaging 22 points per game. If they can play solid defense, I think they can go far. they're an elite scoring team, and I think that is definitely something that they can continue. I like LSU to go far.
Yeah, they lost to Alabama 80-79 in the Southeastern Conference Championship. Big time game between that 8 and 9. Guys, let's move on to the 5-12 Colorado Georgetown. This is a highly anticipated game and one of our many upset alert, I guess you could say, games going on March 20th. So, guys, let's talk about Colorado first. This is a pretty solid team. They can really shoot. They've got size. They've got depth. But this is a very, very good Georgetown team that might be hitting their stride just the right time. E, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, Georgetown pulled off, winning the Big East tournament. They came in with a losing record, but I'm personally going to take Colorado in this game. I know this is a really, very popular upset just, based on the momentum Georgetown has had. But, I don't know if that was just, a lucky couple of days or this is what the new Georgetown team is going to look like. So I'm going to take Colorado in this game. I think they're a safer pick. And they have some really good some really good wins. So, yeah, I'm going to take Colorado.
Nick, what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I think Colorado's going to win. I know Georgetown's hot. They won the Big East tournament. But Colorado's just been the better team all year. So I could maybe see Georgetown win if the Big East run was not a fluke. But I just think that the whole year matters, not just the very end of it.
Yeah, big guy for Colorado is senior guard McKinley Wright, averaging 15.5 points per game. They have three 10-plus point per game scorers, and they make 224 threes this season. A very solid three-point shooting team. Guys, let's go ahead and run it down to Florida State UNC Greensboro. This is another highly anticipated game. You've got the size of Florida State, the physicality of Florida State, and the defense of Florida State against Isaiah Miller, who is a really, really talented player. Adrian, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah. Florida State is a very good team. And I think that they ultimately will win this game. But in the meanwhile, my God, Isaiah Miller has been electric for UNCG. And they've been a really fun team to watch. I think that they could give Florida State a little bit of a challenge, test where their heads are at coming into this. And ultimately, do I think that UNCG wins this? Do I think they legitimately have a shot? Not really, but I think that for about 3/4 of the game, I think that it'll be really close before I think Florida State will end up pulling away, winning by somewhere between 8 and 12.
Yeah, I agree. Florida State has a tendency to take the pedal up the gas at the start of the second half. We've seen that in the North Carolina games recently, but size speaks. And this is a team that's going to run out 3 7-footers. We're going to see some good point guard play. This is a really good Florida State team. Does anybody else have any thoughts on Florida State UNC Greensboro?
Go ahead, Nick.
Go ahead. I was just going to say that I mentioned this earlier, but if UNC Greensboro were playing a worse team, I would definitely pick them to move on. I think this Florida State team is really good. It's just I think I actually have them going to the Elite Eight in my bracket. So that is just I wish UNC Greensboro got a better draw.
Edie, have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think UNCG could definitely pull off the upset. I don't really see it happening. I think, Florida State's just, the way more talented, just the overall better team. But we talked about earlier some guys that like Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, Jalen Suggs, these, highly touted freshmen. They're gonna have all the attention on there. And I think we should throw Scotty Barnes' name into that hat because he comes off the bench and is still a projected lottery pick. And I think a lot of people are going to question, like, okay, he must be, something special or they're going to want to see a lot from him to show why he should be a lottery pick. And if he doesn't, come to play or doesn't perform up to expectations, it could possibly hurt his draft stock.
Yeah, I agree. Leonard Hamilton is known for bringing in some guys and creating this mindset of team is greater than I. This is a team that isn't going to fill up the stat sheet. Their leading scorer only averages 12 points per game. They like to do it by committee, but they win. And Leonard Hamilton is a guy that's going to win today, tomorrow, just as he did yesterday. Leonard Hamilton's got a really good squad. And I think this is a team, guys, that we have to point out. They played 24 games. That's about the average that we've seen this season, but it feels like we've seen them in a small sample size. They got that win over Virginia, but the reality is the ACC just isn't the ACC this year. And I think Florida State is without a doubt the best team in the ACC this year, in my opinion. Any objections there?
Slight bit of doubt. Virginia is, they haven't been stellar all year, but I think that when they're playing their best, they are the best in the ACC.
Yeah, good thoughts there. Let's go ahead and move on to another 6-11. We have the winner of Michigan State UCLA versus the Cougars of BYU. Big time game. We saw the performance BYU put on against Gonzaga. This is a really solid team. They've got Matt Harms, the transfer from Purdue, giving them size on the inside. He's their third leading scorer on the team. Michigan State, they've been hot. They've gotten some good wins. They cooled down in the quarterfinal against Maryland in the Big Ten tournament. UCLA, they've got Johnny Juzang, the Kentucky transfer, their leading scorer. Overall, they're pretty solid as well. Guys, first thoughts. Anybody got any thoughts on the Michigan State UCLA game?
It'll be fun to watch. I can't say that one way or the other. I've got a strong, way of saying that the team's gonna run this. No, it'll be fun to watch, but I think we're really watching this game to see who's gonna get stomped by BYU.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know which Michigan State team is going to show up to when they play UCLA if they win, and then who knows which Michigan State team will show up when they play BYU. Michigan State's just they're very Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You really just don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this team, if you look up and down the roster, Michigan State should be a great team. They should be. They got transferred Joey Hauser from Marquette. They have Langford returning back from his injury. They've got Rocket Watts, an underrated guard. I know he hasn't been himself this year, but this is a team that I feel like really should pose a threat to BYU, but I really don't see it. I see BYU big time over the winner of UCLA Michigan State.
If they want to, the deeper that Michigan State wants to go in this tournament, the better Aaron Henry's going to have to play. He's averaging 15 a game right now. I think to beat UCLA, he has to put that up. To beat BYU, he has to score at least 25. And it only goes up from there. As we look at their road to the Final Four, it only goes up from there.
Yeah, Adrian, I want to pose this question here. Aaron Henry, he's averaging 15 and a half a game. Is this guy is he a real number one option here for Michigan State? Do you think he's going to come up big in these coming games?
I think that he has to, and when you look at him, you say, okay, he's got the experience. He's a junior. He's got the size. He's 6'6", playing forward in in college basketball, you can do that easily. Sorry about that. But I think that he has to – he doesn't have a choice. And we'll see how that pressure hits him. But I don't think he has a choice but to be the number one guy on that team if he wants to survive beyond this week.
Nick, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, this is BYU, right? BYU.
Yeah, BYU, Michigan State, yeah. UCLA.
Yeah, BYU is better than both of them. I don't really have more to say than that.
Jack, do you have anything?
Yeah, same. I think BYU is better than both these teams. UCLA and Michigan State have both been shoddy all season at best, and I just think they're outmatched. I don't really see either of them winning that. Very likely no.
The 3-14 matchup here features Texas and Abilene Christian. Texas, the Big 12 tournament champions, defeating Oklahoma State 91-86. They have a three-headed monster at guard with Andrew Jones, Matt Coleman III, and Courtney Ramey. This team has tremendous size. Shaka Smart is a tremendous coach. E, I want to go to you here. How far do you see Texas going? Personally, I have them in my Final Four.
Texas is another one of those teams that a lot of different scenarios could happen. They could lose in the second round, or they could go to the Elite Eight and Final Four. Personally, I don't have them going very far. I actually have them losing to BYU, but I think they definitely have potential. Shaka Smart has done the impossible for it, taking DCU to the Final Four. So they have a coach that knows how to get the job done in the tournament. I think what it'll come down to is their two kind of high potential draft picks in Greg Brown and Kai Jones. I think they really have to play well in order for Texas to really advance in the tournament.
Yeah, Abilene Christian, I don't think they're 23-4. I don't see them posing much of a threat to a really talented Texas team. But a lot of these teams, I think this could be a bracket this year that surprises a lot of people. There are a lot of just up and down teams throughout this bracket, and we will see what happens. Our next matchup is UConn Maryland, another 7-10 matchup. UConn poses one of the best fresh players in the country in Boatright, and we're obviously seeing Aaron Wiggins and Eric Ayala for Maryland. Any thoughts here on this 7-10 matchup?
I think that, it's always 7-10s are fun because there's a little debate over, is it an upset? Is it a game that we should expect to be a coin flip? But I don't think that there will be any of that here because I think that UConn's men are a team that you need to watch this year. Everybody always pays attention to the women, especially this year with Paige Beckers and the year that they've put together. But I think that the men have been slept on. UConn is a 7 seed here. I could have seen them being a 6. And I think that Maryland is going to have their hands absolutely just full.
Any other thoughts, guys, on Maryland UConn?
I think it's I think UConn, it's always one of those teams you kind of look forward to seeing in the tournament. They always seem to, make some magic, whether it was Kemba Walker or Shabazz Napier. I think they'll beat Maryland. I actually have UConn going pretty far. James Bouknight is a bucket. He will be drafted in the lottery this year. I got UConn going pretty far.
Yeah, UConn is a very dangerous team at that 7. I think they've been given a pretty good draw here as well. Alabama, Iona, guys. Alabama, the SEC champions in the tournament, defeating LSU 80-79. Iona, though, maybe a threat. Anybody got any comments here? Rick Pitino coaching Iona here.
I brought this up earlier. I think if there was a 15-2 upset, I think it would be this one. Iona has tournament experience. They have veteran guards. They've been in the tournament. Alabama, I know they're very hot. I know they won the SEC tournament. Herb Jones won SEC Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year. I understand all that, and this, like I said, this is probably not going to happen. But if there was one, I think it would be this one. I don't also just having Rick Pitino, just kind of that, he's a coaching legend, and having that on your sideline during the tournament brings you a certain level of comfort and a certain level of confidence. And I think that could carry over into this matchup.
Yeah, Rick Pitino is very defensive-minded. Alabama, though, they're a phenomenal shooting team. Phenomenal shooting team. They've made the most threes out of anybody in the field this season. And Javon Quinterly, the Villanova transfer, has played dividends. Adrian, any thoughts on this game?
I think that it's great and all that, Rick Pitino's back in the tournament, and we can write all the stories about that we want to this week. And I gladly encourage people to, because come the round of 32, Iona will no longer be talked about. This Alabama team is just going to be way too much for them. And, coaches don't play. Biggest thing here. Coaches don't play, and we're talking about one of, if not the best teams in the SEC versus Iona. I just can't see a way that they pull it off.
Nick or Jack, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah. Or you can go.
Okay. I'm not going to be long. Again, Alabama's the better team. I could really see them also going on a run in the tournament. I have them losing to Texas, but if they actually got past Texas, I'd probably have them in the Final Four. But yeah, Alabama's a better team.
Yeah, I think that I get all what Ethan said, but I just think Alabama outmatches them on both ends of the floor. They're a very good defensive team. Nate Oates is also a very good coach. He hasn't really been brought up as much, although he didn't win SEC Coach of the Year. But he's another great coach, and I just think Iona's outmatched. So I don't know. I don't see this happening.
Yeah, we could see a pretty good football matchup here. Alabama, Texas, and then possibly –
Well, not recently. Texas.
That's not a very good football – that's a decent football matchup.
Maybe when Mac Brown's at Texas.
History-wise. And then eventually possibly Alabama, Michigan beating in the East Final. That would be quite the matchup there. There's a lot of football schools this year that are making some noise in the tournament. A football school that has not been making noise recently is Baylor, and they have a first-round matchup against Hartford. I don't see much
Baylor
here.
A football school?
I said they have not been making any noise in football recently.
Okay, I was concerned for that.
Okay.
Matt Rule. Don't forget about him. He's a Panthers coach for a reason.
For 1 year
Art Briles screwed up that program.
I was like 1 year with Art Briles as recruits, but
I don't see anything happening here. Hartford 15-8 out of the American East. They beat actually UMBC, a good team. Know a lot about history in the tournament there on their way to a championship. I like this 8-9 matchup here. North Carolina at the 8, Wisconsin at the 9. I thought it was only right to start with Ethan here. Ethan, what do you think about the Tar Heels in this matchup?
I think you want me to start first. To have the only Duke fan in this chat say Carolina's going to win a tournament game. So I'm not happy with you right now. But I mean, they'll beat Wisconsin. They'll beat Wisconsin. I think it's only right that we go to the actual UNC student here, Mr. Tillman. What are your thoughts on this matchup? How do you think North Carolina is going to do against Wisconsin? And do they have potential to make a run in the tournament? Please say no.
Okay, so we'll start right here in the first round. I think that this Wisconsin game, UNC, it's really going to depend. We've seen in the last 6 games, they've won 4 of them, and they've played 5 games worth of great basketball. The first half and the 2 losses were kind of rough, especially that first half against Florida State. But I think that the team that we've seen recently, for the most part, out of UNC, has been the team that we expected to see all year. The preseason ranked to UNC. This has been 8 seed, might be a little bit low UNC. This has been a Carolina team that it'll be exciting to watch until the second round. And Baylor's that good.
Yeah, I think that Carolina's draw here.
It's
tough.
brutal.
It's really brutal here. I even think we get that far. We're looking at a Purdue possible Villanova matchup if we get there. But
you're not beating
I don't
Baylor.
see them.
There's no way you're beating Baylor.
Carolina fans, I will say there's a little bit of hope. As a student, I've got to say I think that this is a better draw matchup wise than it would be to see Illinois or Gonzaga in the second round. But outside of that, obviously we would have rather been matched up not against a 1 seed, but it happens.
Yeah, I think if we were to see a number 1 seed, we'd want to see Michigan, no doubt about that.
For sure.
But
Yes.
but Baylor right now is phenomenal. A little bit of research here. Wisconsin does have 5 6'11" or taller players on their roster. When you look against Carolina opponents, you got to look for shooting and you got to look for size. And they have size, not great shooting. This, in my opinion, will be a tougher matchup than meets the eye for Carolina. I know a lot of fans are looking at this team and being like, this is going to be a run through. We have to remember that about 60-70% of our roster is freshmen. This is their first NCAA tournament game. Will we shoot? Will we rebound? And those are 2 big things that we have to do.
This will be interesting to see size on size because, they have the edge in 6'11" or over players, but there are a couple of players on Carolina who just fall short of the line. I think Baycott's listed at 6'10", for example, and Garrison Brooks is listed at 6'9" or 6'10".
Yeah.
And obviously those are guys with experience and a lot of tenacity on the glass. So size versus size, this will be quite the matchup to watch.
Yeah, and I think a big matchup to watch is Dimitri Trice. He's the point guard for Wisconsin, averaging 13.7 points per game. Caleb Love, this is his first NCAA tournament game, as we know. I think when Caleb runs, I think Carolina runs. And when Caleb is playing well, the energy feeds to his players. And this should be a good game. Wisconsin has lost 4 of their last 5 games. The 5-12, Villanova Winthrop. This is a real upset threat with Colin Gillespie out with a foot injury for Villanova. Does anybody have any thoughts here?
That's one of my the 2 big upset picks that I had. Winthrop's a really good team. Obviously, again, they're 23-1. You do not go 23-1 by accident. And Villanova, as you mentioned, they're missing a key player for that game. And add that up to also with that fact it's a 5-12 matchup, you're going to get at least one. And I feel like this is the easy choice for me.
Yeah, Winthrop out of the Big South. Big South, not really a basketball conference, but 23-1, you cannot disrespect 23-1. Phenomenal team. Villanova, though, down bad without Gillespie. They've lost to Providence and some other teams in the past couple of games. Adrian, do you have any thoughts?
This is tough for me because it's an injured Villanova team, but Villanova is never about the player. It's always about the team. And Winthrop is 23-1, but then you look at their actual schedule and you say, okay, their best wins are by single digits against UNC Greensboro, a dangerous team for sure. But it's still a single digit win against UNCG versus Winthrop, and then a win over Furman. And outside of that, they don't really have any game. So for me, this is like watching those Wichita State teams from the early to mid 2010s where you sat there and went, oh, okay, they went 22-5 again, or they went 26-4 this year, but you never know who they've played against, and you don't know what that team's going to look like until the tournament. So I'm not cautioning people. I think that if you see this as a potential upset, go for it. Fill out your bracket. But just also recognize fully the fact that we don't know enough about Winthrop to confidently say that.
And I think COVID has played a big impact in this. Most teams traveling across the country to play their non-conference games. A lot of these small schools get paid to get great matchups against North Carolina, Kansas, Duke, some of the premier schools of the country. Winthrop, best win against UNC Greensboro. Tough matchup there. Joe Lunardi also had Villanova moving on against Winthrop. No problem. Next one, Purdue at the 4 seed, 18-9. They've come on as of late. They were originally around the 7-8 mark, but they have bounced up to number 4. They've been ranked as high in the mid-teens. and they finish as a 4 seed. They have North Texas. Any thoughts on this game here?
I like Purdue here. I think North Texas is a very good defensive team, but Purdue has lots of size. They're very good rebounding. They have pretty solid depth. I think that Purdue definitely has the advantage in this game.
Yeah, they've got a phenomenal player, Trayvion Williams, a 6'10" forward, averaging 15.5 points per game. Very similar player to Caleb Swanigan we saw a year ago. That Purdue team, unfortunately, did not go very far. They have produced some phenomenal talent. We all know about Carson Edwards in 2019, and that team was really phenomenal. Unfortunately, losing to Virginia in a close one. Any last thoughts on Purdue, North Texas?
It's kind of funny that you mentioned Carson Edwards because where his whole, thing was that he's a great player, but his height or lack thereof was what may be concerned about his NBA future. This Purdue team is the tallest team in the Big Ten, and they're going through a slate of matchups in the first round and then in the second round for sure before a potential third round matchup with a few tall teams. But the first and second round, they're going to have a size advantage, and they're going to have a pretty sizable one. And I think that that'll be enough for them to really show off and build some hype heading into the Sweet 16.
Yeah, Villanova, their tallest player is Jeremiah Robinson Earl at 6'9". So not much size for the Wildcats. I mean, we doubt 6'9", very tall human being. But when it comes to the basketball world, that's undersized for a center for sure. And when they get into those matchups, I don't know if you guys can relate. 2018 Carolina team, we got matched up against Texas A&M. Our lack of height that year really cost us against a really good Texas A&M team. We saw the rebounding numbers there. Ethan, how is Carson Edwards doing for your Celtics? Is he still on the roster or like G League?
Yeah, he's on the roster. We just lost to the Jazz, so I'm not too happy right now. But shout out to my boy Rob Williams on this always for during his time with Texas A&M, getting Carolina to the tournament. We'd love to see it around here.
Wait a minute, does that mean the Hornets are the 5 seed right now? Because I thought we were tied with the Celtics.
We had the same record, but we were ahead of y'all because of strength of schedule.
Well, now we have a better record.
I
have a better record because you lost.
Yeah.
I am checking, and the Hornets are currently above the Celtics. The Celtics are half a game above the Knicks.
Wow.
Okay.
Big news there.
I'm definitely so concerned about the fucking Hornets. I definitely am so worried about the Hornets.
Oh, no, don't worry about the Hornets. Worry about the first round matchup y'all have against the Bucks right now.
Oh, okay. We'll just make a wall. I'm cool with it.
Bucks in 5. Okay, but back to college.
NBA is big time, and so is Mac McClung for the Texas Tech Red Raiders, sitting at a 6 seed. And guys, if I'm Texas Tech right now, I'm licking my chops at a second round matchup, possibly versus Arkansas, and that atrocious defense. I see this is a very, very dangerous. I know they're 17-10. I know they've had their struggles. They've got wins over Texas, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma. This is a really good Texas Tech team. I think they're a little young. They've got Utah State in the first round. A lot of people have been talking about Utah State. They could be a dangerous team. Any initial thoughts about this game?
Utah State. Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I think it really just depends on which version of Texas Tech shows up. Like you said, they have a lot of good wins. They also have some bad losses. I think this is really going to come down to what they are able to do, because I think Utah State, we know what they're going to bring, but I think this all just comes down to how Texas Tech plays.
Okay. I think that Texas Tech has the potential to win this game. I also think that they have the potential to lose this game by quite a bit. They're just one of the less consistent teams in my eyes in the field, and I think that's contributed to their ranking and to even among the 6 seeds, getting a kind of rough draw with Nehemias Queta, I want to say his name's pronounced, at Utah State, and a team that's really been playing well, but has been a little bit under the radar, as a lot of people don't pay attention to the Aggies. But I think Texas Tech absolutely has the potential to win this game comfortably. They just have to show up for it.
Yeah, I think, guys, I don't know if you guys can agree with this. I think this tournament and the selections for all our viewers out there are going to come down to which do you like better? Do you like a middle-of-the-road team in a phenomenal conference that's played great competition all year long? If you're a Big 12 team, if you're a Big 10 team, maybe a low ACC team, or do you like the mid-majors? Do you like the guys out west, the guys that don't get the spotlight all the time? And these guys are playing good basketball. They're consistent, but maybe haven't seen the physicality of some of these teams all year. Those are going to factor in, I think, a lot to our selections when they come. The 3-14 matchup, I'll start with you. Out of the South, we've got Arkansas. We all know about Moses Moody. He's a phenomenal player, a 24/7 top 30 player. Chose Arkansas over some others. They have a toothpaste brand, Colgate, in the first round. Any thoughts there?
This game definitely has some upset potential, but I'm still going to take Arkansas. I think Moses Moody is a really, really good player. I'm very high on him for the drafts. So I'm gonna roll with Arkansas.
Any other thoughts, guys?
Colgate is 14-1, and that's going to be something that you're going to hear a ton of hype about coming into this year, or coming into this year's tournament. They're 14-1, and they're a 14 seed, and they might be, major upset potential, 13 wins in a row. But we have to remember that they don't have any really high quality wins. What the tournament loves looking for these years, what the quadrant 1 wins, they don't have any quadrant 1 games. You can't say that they've got a really impressive win against, because they just don't have any that the selection committee can look at and go, yeah, this is a game that determines, this team's level of quality. They're literally only in the tournament because they're in the Patriot League and they won the Patriot League. And I think that this game against Arkansas, it'll be certainly interesting to watch. Colgate's a good shooting team. Colgate, they can get it done on both ends of the floor. At least they have been able to against the teams they've played. But I think this will be one of those examples of watching a team that has had the spotlight on them all year remind the team that hasn't why the spotlight has followed them around.
Yeah, Arkansas is second in the Southeastern Conference this year. Really, this game is expected to be a track meet, up and down, a lot of shots taken, a lot of threes taken. But can Colgate come on top? I'm not really sure yet about that one. I'm a big fan of Arkansas, though. And another team I'm kind of big on is Virginia Tech. My Tar Heels were able to pull out a big-time win in the ACC tournament versus the 15-6 Hokies. They've got Florida in the first round, and a lot of fans I know I was on social media with were confused why Florida at 14-9 is a 7 and North Carolina at 18-10 is 8. But this is a big game. They've got Virginia Tech first round. Nick, any thoughts? I know you've watched a lot of Virginia Tech, a lot of ACC basketball. Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think Virginia Tech's going to win. I've seen Tech play. They have been impressive throughout the year in the ACC, even though the ACC hasn't been really as good as it's been in the past. But I feel like they'll be able to at least make it out of the first round. I don't think they'll get past Ohio State, but I think they can beat Florida.
Yeah, Keve Aluma is a big-time player for Virginia Tech on the inside. Inconsistent player. He's got his games. He's got his down games. We know he can do that. Trey Mann for Florida is a guy to look out for. Great shooter. E, do you have any thoughts on this Vatek Florida game?
Not really. I'm gonna take Virginia Tech just because they've also kind of struggled the past months. They've also had some COVID pauses. Like I believe when they played in the ACC tournament, they hadn't played in a couple of weeks, so they just had some rust on them just from not playing. But I think they'll get the job done against Florida.
So, guys, let's move on. Our last game of the South region, 3 of 4 down. We have Ohio State, the 2 seed at 21-9, versus Oral Roberts at 16-10. A surprise to make the tournament, winning their conference. Ohio State has Dwayne Washington. They've got Liddell on the inside. This is a really good team. We saw them edge Michigan, but end up getting beat by Illinois in the Big Ten championship. But I don't know about you guys. I'm really high on this Illinois team. I don't know how to feel about Ohio State. Adrian, I know you've seen a lot of Ohio State. What's your initial thoughts?
I've seen them a lot, and I've liked them a lot. All year I've said that this is a 5th 1 seed. I just think that they got crowded out by, the quality of Michigan and Illinois seasons, but I think that they are just a really good team, and it's going to be tough to oust them, and certainly not in the first round by Oral Roberts.
I agree. Sorry, go ahead.
This Ohio State team, they've been winning their games close, but they've been winning them close because they play in what's this year been the best conference in basketball in the Big Ten. And they've had sorry, let's get something in my eye right there. But they've had Dwayne Washington Jr. and EJ Liddell especially as a 1-2 punch. I really like those guys. They've played well. They've put up nice numbers on the scoreboard. And I think that those two, because if you stop one, usually teams that are good at stopping your 3-ball aren't going to be the same teams that are shutting you down inside. And so there's always at least one of them's going to be hot.
Yeah, Ohio State is a phenomenal defensive team as well. You underestimate the physicality of the Big Ten until you face them head on and that punch that they come at you with. There are 3 legit teams out of that Big Ten that could be in the Final Four this year: Illinois, Michigan, and Ohio State. Some really, really solid teams. Our final part of the bracket here, we've got the Midwest. Illinois, I'd say, without a doubt, is going to take down Drexel in the first round, that 116 matchup. Does anybody object here to say that Drexel will down Illinois in the first round?
No.
Please.
I can 100% say that Drexel will most definitely lose to Illinois, most likely by 30.
Anything is possible.
As Kevin
who
Garnett
said that
once
UMBC would be Virginia, right?
Hey, that's true. I'm picking it right now. Drexel to the Final Four.
It is true that nobody expected UMBC to beat Virginia, but I also think that Virginia team would lose to this Illinois team.
Well, yeah. What about the Michigan State team with Denzel Valentine that lost to Middle State?
Middle Tennessee.
They were the last 2 seed to lose a first round game. Fun fact, just throwing that out there. But I don't think that they're better than this Illinois team, and I think this Illinois team, Ayo Dosunmu and Kofi Cockburn, they're built different, man.
I agree with you, though. I did see them play in the Big Ten title game against Ohio State, and I came out impressed with both teams in that game. So.
Yeah, those are 2 guys that we could see very soon playing on the next level of elite basketball. And I mean, we talk about championship teams that have won. There's a lot of similarities, elite guards, which Illinois has, and talented big men, which Illinois has. And so they fit the pieces. They've got the ingredients. I think they just got to put it together. But they could see a second-round matchup against the winner of Loyola Chicago at 24-4. Sister Jean will be attending the tournament this year to watch Loyola Chicago. I forget their mascot. Does anybody know that? I don't know.
The Ramblers, I think, right?
The Ramblers,
yeah,
that's right.
Yep.
The Ramblers are rolling on. All right. Yeah. Will the Ramblers be rolling on against ACC tournament champion at a 9 seed, Georgia Tech? Anybody got any thoughts?
I was going to say that that is one of the seeds that I thought Georgia Tech was way too low. I mean, I know they've had a bunch of they had some bad losses early in the year, but they were really good in ACC play. They had the ACC Player of the Year in Moses Wright, also from North Carolina. Shout out. But
Where's he from?
trying to remember. Anybody have that? Anybody?
Give me like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess and say he's from Durham, North Carolina. I'm just playing.
He went to Inlow, so.
Oh, really? He's from Raleigh.
Yeah.
Raleigh. How did State miss him?
Cool.
State
But
missed
anyway.
a lot of
State
things,
misses
so,
recruits.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Or
Yeah,
enough.
they just
Fair
get
enough.
up to
pay
the
them
league
too.
instead.
But
They
anyway,
pay them too.
yeah, but I think they should have been better than 9. But whatever, the tournament, I guess the committee knows more than I do.
Yeah. I feel bad. Sister Jean, hopefully she's been vaccinated. Obviously, prayers for health for her at 101 years old. And I feel bad because she's got her ticket to go out there and watch them lose in the first round. This is not last year's Loyola Chicago team. I think that Georgia Tech wins this game, and I think that Georgia Tech wins this game by double digits.
Interesting take there. Georgia Tech, they force turnovers. They're pesty. They're a tough team to face. I think they're a tough matchup on the smaller team size-wise, but we saw what they did against Florida State, a team that takes care of the ball, forcing just turnover after turnover in that ACC championship. I don't know much about Loyola. They obviously beat Drake 2 out of 3. But Adrian, you pointed out that Drake maybe shouldn't have been in the tournament.
Yeah.
So not much to say there, not much to see there from Loyola. I see them getting either bounced in the first round or, as the inevitable, bounced in the second round by Illinois.
They're not a bad team by any stretch to any Loyola fans out there. I know they have the 2 wins over Drake. I know that they have they've shot over 50% from the field, but I think that a large part of that is because they've run basically their entire offense through their post. And I think that Georgia Tech's going to stop that. You know, Loyola's been kind of a one-man show offensively with Cameron Krutwig. And Georgia Tech's not going to let that happen.
Yeah, I agree. Jose Alvarado, though, probably will be a big impact in this upcoming game against Loyola. In our next matchup, we got the 5-12, of course. Tennessee at the 5. They've been very inconsistent this year. We've seen talent. They've got 2 tremendous freshmen in Jaden Springer and Keon Johnson. Those guys will play at the next level very, very soon. They've got Oregon State in the first round. Does anybody have any thoughts? Oregon State, they're coming off of the Pac-12 championship. Would they be in the tournament without it? I think not. So a hot team versus a very inconsistent team. This should be a dandy. Anybody got any thoughts?
Yeah, I was going to say, this is another one I could see going to Oregon State. I don't think it'll happen, but as you said, Tennessee's been really consistent this year, and Oregon's hot. So that could be another one of those 5-12 games that we should probably keep an eye on.
The players to watch here, Oregon State's backcourt. Ethan Thompson and Jared Lucas are the 2 players left.
I'll just speak for a second, but I think Tennessee. I think Tennessee will win the game. They're very thin, and one of their guys is potentially not playing. I forgot his name. I think it's like John.
John Fulkerson.
Yeah, him. But I think Tennessee will get the job done.
I was just peeping Tennessee's schedule here. On December 15th on SEC Network, they defeated Appalachian State 79-38.
No, we were awful that game. I watched that too. We were awful that game. We had
that was
15 points at halftime.
That was
Really?
not. We had an off. It was just an off day. You know, something's wrong.
Justin
with the
Forrest
Reds,
didn't
can't
play
shoot.
too. Justin
Yeah,
Forrest,
we-
our point
yeah.
guard, didn't play.
So what I'm hearing is that's the second worst loss of App State season, with the first being what's going to happen to them if they beat Norfolk State.
Yes.
If
Yes,
they
yes, that's
beat
what I'm-
Norfolk State.
Yes.
Yeah, we beat Norfolk
Yeah, we're
State.
not
We're
being-
not in the same tier as Gonzaga. We are not.
We're obviously we will lose to Gonzaga. That's not a if. That's a win.
Yes.
If it's a if because it's a if you make it. Norfolk State is a pretty good team.
Why are they 16?
Why are they a 16? Because they're in a nobody conference and they did not win the MEAC.
Interesting take there.
If you don't,
we
win,
talk about. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm saying if you don't win your conference, you know, if you're from a conference like the MEAC and you don't win regular season and tournament together, then you're not getting better than the 16. We've seen that with some pretty good MEAC teams actually with that conference specifically, with Central and A&T putting up some pretty solid teams, and I want to say 15, 16, and 18, the conference champions those years were actually pretty solid teams, and all of them got slotted into that 16 in play-in.
Yeah, back to Tennessee. We can see the talent here with this team. They routed number 15 Kansas 80-61. They've beaten some really solid teams out of the SEC, but then we see losses to Auburn 72-77 and to Kentucky 55-70. So, you know, Kentucky is in itself this year. On Kentucky's note, though, Cameron Fletcher just entered the transfer portal, and he is friends with Caleb Love. So if I'm Roy Williams, maybe looking to snatch him up. But obviously, huge upset opportunity there. The 4-13 Oklahoma State Liberty. Liberty is kind of dangerous, actually. I was listening to Joe Lenardi talk about him this morning. Phenomenal three-point shooting team, but they do have the best player in the country on the other side of the basketball with them. I see Cade doing a lot of damage in this tournament. Nick, do you have any thoughts to start off
I
with?
was gonna say, I think Cade's probably this is gonna be a good showcase for him, for people that have not seen Oklahoma State play to see how good this guy really is. I can see them I can actually see Oklahoma State going on a pretty big run, but yeah, Liberty was playing somebody else. Maybe I could see them upsetting somebody else, but I like this Oklahoma State team. They've been playing really good. They've been playing really good basketball.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on Oklahoma State?
Yeah, I'm very high on Oklahoma State. You know, just to see that Cade Cunningham, who will be the number one pick in that draft. I even have one of the brackets I made is called the Cade contingency. Basically, it's if Cade just goes insane during the tournament. You know, leads them to the Final Four, all that stuff. But also, I think Oklahoma State wins this game. Cade is just too much. But potentially we could have Cade versus Illinois in the Sweet 16, and that has best game of the tournament written all over it. So if you're a fan of just wanting to watch good basketball, root for Oklahoma State and Illinois to be in the Sweet 16.
I've got to agree with everybody else. You know, Oklahoma State is going to win this game, and I think that Cade Cunningham is going to put up a show, but I think that it'll be a fun game to watch regardless, because, you know, Oklahoma State does this thing where they'll win a game, but they have to have a heroic performance just so that they want you to watch. They want to make it interesting. And Liberty is certainly not the type of team to go down without a fight. The winners of 12 straight in the Atlantic Sun. And I think that it'll be fun watching, a good 3-point shooting Liberty team led by Darius McGee. I think that this has kind of Marcus Howard, John Morant potential, and watching it is watching a solid team on one end versus a supposed to be better team on the other end. Except I think this is what it would look like if Ja played for Marquette instead of Murray State. That would be my comparison, because I think that both Cunningham and McGee are going to go off this game, but it's just not going to be enough. Oklahoma State's the better team.
Yeah, I agree, and I could see this becoming a situation like Kemba Walker with that UConn team in 2011, and just putting on a show and making. He has the knack for the clutch shot. We've seen it with Oklahoma State this year. We know who's taken that shot. There's no question about it, and he's made a good amount of them. So this could be a really dangerous team in the top part of our bracket, and in the bottom part of the bracket, San Diego State. I know, Adrian, you talked about you're pretty high on them in this matchup against Syracuse. Syracuse has been playing well lately. They lost on the buzzer beater to Virginia. That game could have gone 50-50. A guy that had maybe shot 11 threes all year made that shot for Virginia. So you can say this team's playing well. They can really shoot it. Buddy Boeheim, the son of Jim Boeheim, actually, is playing his best basketball at the right time, and they're a dangerous team.
Will Buddy Boeheim and Alan Griffin go off? That's the question, and that's going to be the determining factor on whether or not they can overcome a top 10 defense out in San Diego. The Aztecs are just a really good shutdown team, and they've played all season holding opponents to less than 61 points per game. They're undefeated against, in admittedly only 2 showings, but they're 2-0 against top 25 opponents. Syracuse is 1-3. And the San Diego State team is one where I think people sleep on them because especially out here, people sleep on them because they're not a huge school and they're a West Coast school. People aren't really getting exposed to that the same way. But I think unless the Syracuse three-pointer falls at an absurd clip against this defense, I think San Diego State moves on.
Yeah, I agree, guys. Any other thoughts on Syracuse versus San Diego State?
Yeah, I actually do. I actually picked Syracuse to win this game. I understand, very, very unlikely, but I think a factor that needs to be taken under consideration is that teams that don't regularly play against the 2-3 zone tend to struggle against it when they see it. And especially somebody like San Diego State out in the Mountain West, not very familiar. So I think the fact that they just don't really have that experience against the zone, it's shown in previous tournaments. I think 2016 when Syracuse had like Malachi Richardson, they made the Final Four after just squeaking into the tournament. I think a similar thing could happen here. Do I see Syracuse making the Final Four this year? Absolutely not. But do I think they could upset San Diego State? Yeah, I could.
They were an 11 seed when they did that, weren't they? Or were they a 10?
Yeah, they were 11. I remember. A lot of people thought they wouldn't even make the tournament. I do remember. Because they lost to like Pitt in the first round of the ACC tournament.
Yeah, they made the tournament because they made a shot against Duke, if I'm correct, right?
Of course. The Duke factor.
I do remember that run, actually. It wasn't even just a 2-3. I remember they actually ran the press really well in a couple of those games, like in the Sweet 16 and Elite 8.
Oh, the Elite 8 game.
Against Virginia with Malcolm Brogdon, where Virginia really could have won that, but they just couldn't handle the press.
Yeah, so obviously a big game there between San Diego State and Syracuse. In my opinion, a dark horse in this tournament is West Virginia, sitting at that 3 seed right there. In my opinion, they've got a good draw. This Houston team, if you're going to see a 2 seed, in my opinion, you want to see Houston. This is a Houston team that lost to the East Carolina Pirates back in January. So look out for the Pirates in the future. No, I'm just kidding. But they have Morehead
Yeah,
State.
right.
This is a Morehead State team. Say that again. Did somebody say something?
No, I just said you were joking about ECU, and I was like, yeah, right. Yeah, they're going to be.
Yeah, I don't think
never
we'll
been.
see ECU in the tournament anytime soon. Go Pirates. They play Morehead State, and if you know anything about Morehead State, this is a team that has had some upsets in recent years. We talk about them beating Louisville a couple of years back on a nice shot. So this is West Virginia Morehead State. I feel like West Virginia has been that team, kind of forgotten out of the Big 12. They play people close. I saw them play against Kansas back at the beginning of the season when conference play first started. They're a good team. They have tremendous size, and they can shoot it. Any other thoughts on West Virginia Morehead State?
West Virginia Morehead State. The real determining factor here, I think they get out of this game unscathed. Morehead State, when we look at their notable games, they've beaten Belmont twice, but they also have almost 20-point loss to Richmond, 15-point loss to Clemson, and a 33-point just drubbing by Ohio State. They haven't played well when they've been confronted with big games. But West Virginia, the thing that's going to be a factor for whether or not they can survive and advance in this tournament is their post defense and paint play. They're not great against good teams, and their post defense hurts them in close games because they just give up points, they give up fouls, and they'll send you to the stripe, and it's the reason that they have 9 losses right now.
Yeah. West Virginia with 9 losses, 18 wins. There's definitely 2 sides of that Big 12. There's the top and there's the bottom. And a lot of losses are at the bottom of that division. Adrian, it's funny you mentioned Belmont. I was on ESPN the other day and watched about a 4-minute rant of Dick Vitale claiming that Belmont should have been in the tournament. Very passionate speech there about that Belmont team. Apparently they're pretty solid team. Next up we have in our last 2 matchups here. First we have Clemson at 16-7 out of the ACC. They are the 7th seed against Rutgers, 15-11 out of the Big 10. They are the 10th seed. This happens on March 19th. First thoughts, Clemson guys, I feel like they are maybe the most up and down team, not named North Carolina in the ACC. This team can score 50 points or they can score 80 points. They can play great defense or they can get drummed by Florida State. So, I'll start with you. First initial thoughts on this Clemson-Rutgers game.
I think it's good. I think it's between 2 teams that grind out games, so it'll be close down the stretch. In most of their games that they've had, it's been close. I think that will continue to be the same. I think the ultimate determining factor is just kind of who makes a play down the stretch, who makes the big stop, who makes the big shot. Those kind of marquee moments we look for. I think ultimately I would take the higher seed in Clemson just in this game, but it's a coin flip game. I would take Clemson because I think they are, while being inconsistent, I do think they are the safer team between the 2, and so I would personally take Clemson.
The thoughts, guys?
Yeah, I think this is a matchup between 2 teams that are inconsistent. Like you said, Clemson has been inconsistent, but Rutgers has also been inconsistent. They have a lot of big wins. They have wins over Illinois and other teams like in the tournament like Maryland and Purdue, but they also have some bad losses. So I think this is going to be another case of which team is going to show up on any given day, and that goes for both sides. I mean, Clemson could not show up or they could play great, and the same thing goes for Rutgers. So it really just depends on which version of both of these teams show up on a given day.
I like this Rutgers team. And I think that, the Illinois win is obviously the reason that people know them. But they don't lose by much when they lose. They lost by 7 to Michigan. They split a series with Michigan State. They lost by 6 to Wisconsin, 5 against Purdue. They've played teams close when it matters. And I think that when it matters here against an opponent who has similar struggles, I think that they'll play well enough to get it done.
Nick, do you have any thoughts?
No, nothing that everybody has not already said about both of these teams.
I want to point out, guys, that this Midwest region is the Orange Bloods. I saw this on College Basketball Hub. Illinois, Tennessee, Oregon State, Oklahoma State, Syracuse, and Clemson. The Orange Bloods. We see the Blue Bloods usually in the tournament, but it is a very different year in college basketball.
No Carolina and Duke for the first time in 4 years.
Say it again.
No Carolina or Duke for the first time in at least 4 years.
Kentucky or Duke.
Okay, I mean Kentucky, not Carolina.
Sorry, the last NCAA tournament.
First time since was it like 1960 or something they said? It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
I don't know if you guys saw this stat, that this ACC tournament championship was the first time since 1996 that nor Duke or Carolina has been in the chip. That is unbelievable. It was even if you're a Carolina Duke fan, you have to respect that. That's unbelievable.
That is.
It was a football one. It was a football matchup.
Florida State, Mickey Mouse won first off.
Yeah.
Oh, Georgia Tech has not been a football matchup in the ACC championship for a little minute themselves.
Well, maybe that's Florida State. I'm just saying traditionally, you think of Georgia Tech and Florida State for football before you think of basketball.
Oh, if nothing else, that triple option,
Yeah, that's my point.
Yes, run a triple back.
Win games 60-50 and lose them 50-60.
Yep. Very true. The Orange Bloods dominate this region. A team that is far from orange, they are red, is the Houston Cougars at 24-3 out of the American Conference. Not too high on the American Conference, to be honest with you. Like I said before, this is a team that lost on the road at East Carolina earlier in the year. If you know anything about East Carolina, outside of baseball, sports is not the memo. Tough in not great in football and not great in basketball. They have Cleveland State. Don't see any problems here in this 2-15 matchup. If there was going to be a 2-15 matchup that you could see the upset that's not Alabama-Iona, I'd go with this one next. I don't know much about Houston. I know they have Quentin Grimes, who is, I think, in the running for first team All-American this year. He's a transfer from Kansas. Really solid player. Any thoughts on this matchup versus Cleveland State as we finish up?
Yeah, I do like this Houston team. I know they do have a very bad loss, but they're an elite defensive team. They're a very good offensive rebounding team as well. And like you said, they have scorers. So I really do like this Houston team a lot, despite their bad loss. I think that they can go really far.
Yeah. They have, people are going to look at that ECU loss and go, well, they only have 3 losses, but one of them is to a team that's usually pretty atrocious. But I don't think that loss represents Houston as we see them coming into this tournament. This is one of the, best Houston teams in decades, and I think that they're going to show it through these first couple rounds. They're going to hit a tough Sweet 16 game, depending on who they pull from the other side of that. But, up until then, I think that they're going to have a relatively simple road to victory, and I think they're going to play it well.
Yeah, I do too. This really solid Houston team. They've got a good draw here. I see a team. Don't see a team that they can that they won't lose to until that Sweet 16 possible matchup against Illinois.
They wouldn't. Illinois would be in Elite Eight.
Oh, my bad.
Sweet 16 would be San Diego State, West Virginia, Syracuse, Morehead State, one of those 4.
Yeah. So obviously good matchups here. There's not yet been a perfect bracket, but if you keep watching this podcast, I can guarantee you will get that perfect bracket.
100%. But before we go, I just want to get y'all's, let's say you have to, bet the house on one team. Don't just say I wouldn't bet the house. Just actually pick a team. What team right now would you pick to cut down the nets?
To cut down the nets. This has been a stat that's been going around the internet a lot lately. The last time neither Duke nor Kentucky made an NCAA tournament was 1976. The last time we had an undefeated national champion was 1976. And the last time that Gonzaga was the best team in basketball was yesterday. So I've got to go with the Zags going all the way. I have them cutting down the nets, beating Illinois in the national championship.
So who's the best team today then?
The best team today is, well, nobody right now. We're letting it sink in. Everybody's marinating before they go out there and get this first round back out there. But trust me, when basketball at the college level resumes, the best team will once again be Gonzaga.
Isn't the NIT playing today? So one of the best teams beat one of the best teams.
I guess
Sony.
I guess the best team would. Well, in that
saying.
case, it should be Duke, but they decided not to.
Yeah, we declined that invitation. We declined the invitation, respectfully, of course.
Yeah, if I were to bet my house, well, first off, I want a beautiful country house out in the wilderness.
Right.
That doesn't cost as much as the local city house. So I have to go with my best bet, and that's the University of North Carolina Tar Heels. I just see them as the best team in the country right now.
No,
they're hot.
I just see them as. I mean, Caleb Love has to be the best point guard coming out in the draft this year. Day'Ron Sharpe will be dominant. There's not a team that Carolina can't beat in the country right now.
There's not a team they can't beat, but there's also
not a team they can't beat.
Yeah,
not a team they can beat. Yeah, truth.
I know you said it half joking, half serious, but I do want to bring it up. We look at a couple teams in here that are lower seeds or are teams that we've talked about earlier in the show that have had consistency issues or had performance issues. I want to say that UNC, Creighton, Kansas, personally Oregon, LSU, these are teams that all have very, very deep run potential. It's just a matter of, will we see them play their best basketball?
I agree.
That's always.
How North Carolina's not beating Baylor. I'm sorry, you burst your bubble. But they are not beating Baylor.
Baylor is a great team, but if you show me the UNC team that played Duke, at the end of the regular season,
they were playing Duke.
They were playing us. This is the Duke fan talking now. They were playing us. I'm pretty sure I could have found, I could have gone outside and picked the football team at App State that I was playing with earlier, and we probably could have at least won by 10.
Once again,
so
I'm
not too concerned.
Man, that's brutal, man.
Once again, when I say that,
you take it easy on your team, man.
When I say that, it's not about the opponent. It's about the way that they played that game. They showed a level of efficiency that they struggled to find consistently all season. And when I say that, I'm saying that they played, insanely well. And all it takes is one game. This isn't something where you're asking them to win a 7-game series. All it takes is one night. And this isn't an infallible Baylor team. They lost to Kansas. They lost to Oklahoma State. It's proven that if you put the right recipe up against them, they will lose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right.
It's possible.
Yeah, it's definitely possible, and it's March Madness, so literally anything can happen. But Jack, who are you feeling as the Bet My House team to win the tournament?
I've got Illinois, man. I think they have it all. They have elite guards. They have elite bigs. They can shoot. They have solid depth. I like this Illinois team a lot, and I have them winning the championship, and I think that they're the best team right now.
All right, Nick, who you got?
I know we were just talking about them, but I actually got Baylor. I feel like if they, like a lot of the losses they've had, have been because they've had their own pauses, they've gotten out of rhythm. But when they're in rhythm, they've arguably been the best team in the country this year. And I feel like they could easily go on a run and get hot and win the whole thing.
my personal bet, bet the house on. I'm starting with Jack. I'm going Illinois. As much as I really want to pick Oklahoma State because of Cade Cunningham, that's just not a smart money move. So I'm a pick Illinois because they're great. They're good offensively. They're good defensively. They have playmakers. They have scorers. They have the balance that you look for, the balance that every team strives to have. They've been playing really well down the stretch. So I would bet my house on Illinois to win the national championship.
All right, let me be serious this time, and I'm going to end up going with Texas. And here's why. I think, yes, they have the tough matchup with BYU. I just think they're a better team. I know BYU's got size, but so does Texas. They've got the bigs. They've got 2 really athletic bigs. They've got 3 really good guards. They've got senior leadership. They've got a great coach. And I just see this team beating BYU. And if you're going to play a number 2 seed in the Sweet 16, I'd want to see Alabama if I'm looking at any team out here. And I think they'll be physical against Alabama. I think they'll lock down their guards. And I just think they're going to be too much. And I watched them against Carolina. They've got Coleman the third, and he's going to take a big shot, and he's going to make it. I got them pulling some upset and win the championship this year. UT.
Hook 'em horns, baby.
Hook 'em horns.
Oh, all right. I mean, horns down over here, but, I'll let you have your fun.
Yeah. Mac Brown came from Texas, and he just brought success to Carolina. I think it reverses circle back to Austin, and they bring home that trophy. All right. Well, if you're looking for a place to get some knowledge about your bracket, this has been it tonight. Super psyched to get started this Thursday as we are just about 48 hours away from tip-off of the tournament. You've got our predictions. You've got our picks. Go get them with your bracket. And we look forward to seeing that perfect bracket show up on April 5th.